Welcome back to Mr. Scott Maths. In this video we're going to look at how we can share in a ratio where we know the difference between the two shares but we don't know the total. So we're told in this question that Alice and Ben share money in the ratio 3:5. Ben receives £16 more than Alice. How much do they both receive? So I'm going to start any ratio question like this by labelling my ratio. I look at these two people here, Alice and Ben, so I'm going to label this ratio A to B. And my ratio goes in the same order as the people that are listed. So Alice is the 3, Ben is the 5. So I'm going to write my ratio out, 3:5. Now I'm told in this question that Ben receives £16 more than Alice. So I'm looking at a difference between their two shares. So I'm going to add an extra part to my ratio. So I'm going to label with a D, and that's D for difference. Now let's look at the difference in my ratio. Between 3 and 5, that's a difference of 2. I get that from doing 5 subtract 3. Now I'm told that the actual difference between their two shares is £16. So I'm going to place this under my difference. Now I'm going to create an equivalent ratio underneath. And to create that equivalent ratio, I need to multiply everything in this first ratio by some number to get my second ratio. So I see I've got a match here in my differences, and I get to think, what do I multiply 2 by to get 16? I multiply by 8. Now I need to do this throughout the rest of my ratio. So 3 times by 8, that's 24. And 5 times by 8, that's 40. So this tells me that Alice receives £24 and Ben receives £40. And what I should be able to tell from these two sums is that they have that difference of 16 that I wanted. 40 subtract 24 is 16. So I know this is the correct answer. Alice gets £24, Ben gets £40. In this second question, we're told that Lauren and Claire share money in the ratio 9:4. Lauren receives £35 more than Claire. How much do they both receive? So again, I'm going to start by labelling my ratio. I have Lauren and Claire here, so let's write this as L to C. And my ratio in the same order is 9:4. Again, since I'm given a difference between their two shares, I add a third part to my ratio that I label with D for difference. And 9 subtract 4 gives me a difference of 5. Now the real difference between these two sums is £35. So I'm going to put a 35 down underneath my 5. And I now need to think, what do I multiply 5 by to make 35? And that's going to be 7. And I'm going to multiply by 7 throughout the rest of my ratio. So 9 times 7, that gives me 63. And 4 times 7 is 28. This tells me that Lauren receives £63 and that Claire receives £28. And again, we should notice the difference between these two numbers is 35. In this last question, we're told that Kieran and Josh share money in the ratio 11:4. Kieran receives £28 more than Josh. How much do they both receive? So let's start by labelling my ratio. I'm going to label this as K to J. And our ratio is 11:4. And then I add a third part to my ratio, which is the difference. 11 minus 4 is 7. Now the real difference is £28. So I've got to think, what do I multiply by 7 to get to 28? And that's going to be 4. And I do this throughout my ratio. For Kieran then, I do 11 times 4, which is 44. And for Josh, I do 4 times 4, which is 16. So I find that Kieran receives £44 and Josh receives £16. Again, with a difference of £28 between the two.